Welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Our guest on the program this morning from the Elmira Pioneers, Robbie Nichols. Their opening day is coming up this Friday at 6:35, so we'll talk to Robbie about that. That's in just a little bit. Of course, the big news that you can weigh in on, well, you can weigh in on anything, really, if you want, is the debt ceiling bill. Yesterday we had some speculation from some in the media that Chip Roy would be able to block this from leaving committee. It did not. The House Rules Committee did advance the debt ceiling vote, so weigh in on what you're learning. I know with some of these massive bills, it seems like we're learning a lot day by day, but it was a 7-6 vote to advance the debt ceiling bill to the floor. They could vote as early as today. It sounds like they're going to at least attempt. There's a lot of back and forth that, yes, we have the support, we don't have the support. Most of the headlines say the McCarthy and Biden are rushing around, calling everybody, whipping up votes. I guess it was Republican Representative Rolf Norman and Chip Roy who voted against the measure. So it'll go to the floor today for a debate and potential final passage of the bill. We will be talking about that throughout the morning. A lot to discuss. Do I have a moment? I have a moment. No reason to rush. Sorry about all the ads and all this, but this coming from the Associated Press. President Biden says he feels good that this is going to go through. Yesterday, McCarthy and Republicans met behind closed doors over pizza. I guess informal, for more than 2 hours at the Capitol. McCarthy walked Republicans through the details, fielded questions, encouraged them not to lose sight of the bill's budget savings. This is very important. The media has hyped this up yet again as a must-win for McCarthy, just like they did with the original passage of the bill the House Republicans put forth originally that President Biden said was not even a negotiation starting point. We don't have to belabor that or go back into those issues. But McCarthy said we are going to pass the bill. Something that gets kind of buried in some of these articles, which I found fascinating, is that Speaker McCarthy, when he entered this meeting, this behind closed door Republican meeting, nothing nefarious there, but just to talk it all through and why it's important to pass it, he did receive a standing ovation, which you would not expect that if you look at the media's narrative on this and who they decide to quote and who they decide to not quote, which we talk about on this program a lot. Is often the most important thing is what the media decides not to tell you. Representative Scott Perry said this deal fails. He's a Republican out of Pennsylvania. Fails completely. And that's why these members and others will be absolutely opposed to the deal. He's the chairman of the Freedom Caucus, if you're not aware. We will do everything in our power to stop it. That, again, the Freedom Caucus. Chip Roy, who they've been quoting a lot, he's been very, for lack of a better term, aggressive, very outspoken. You've seen the press conferences. You've seen what he's had to say. He said, and I can't swear to you I predicted it on this program or if it was off the air. No, I think I asked you the question. When this is all said and done, do you think the people that originally opposed McCarthy as Speaker will try to make this a reason to boot him out as Speaker? And Chip Roy alluded to that yesterday, saying there is going to be a reckoning. So potentially using this as a way to oust McCarthy from the speakership. So I don't think that comes as a surprise how just back and forth that got from the beginning when he originally got the speaker's position. But if you watch that, I know I joked about that time with former Congressman Joe Sempolinski when he was first on the program, who's actually going to be on the program tomorrow to talk about this exact thing, about the debt ceiling. But you watch C-SPAN, it was like, I don't want to watch C-SPAN all day. But it was that exciting, if you want to use that term, for the race. So will those same people that opposed him originally and finally came into the fold now use this as an excuse to try to oust him as Speaker? You can weigh in on it before we go to break or during the break or whatever you want to contact me. I'll be looking at those before the end of the show and after as well. As I said, Robbie Nichols coming up in just a little bit, but we need to take our first break. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox there. I forgot to put up or take down my contact information. If that works, you can contact me at any time. Okay. Back to the debt deal, the private meeting, and of course, even though it is a private meeting, you get a lot of anonymous sources coming out of those meetings. One of the quotes that's coming from Speaker McCarthy is telling his fellow Republicans, if you think I failed you, I'm sorry. Because some in the media have gone to the media and said that they think this is a failure overall. He said, but if you think I failed, I think you're wrong. He kicked off this private meeting with Republicans by telling members, hey, let's have fun tonight. I'm sure many of them can think of different ways to have fun than a 2-hour meeting about the debt ceiling. CNN asked Speaker McCarthy before, saying, what would you tell Republicans are going to vote or are talking about voting no? He quipped that, just vote yes. Now, McCarthy, again, I say how this keeps getting buried in these articles, but McCarthy received applause and a standing ovation as he entered the room, which, again, Chip Roy, very outspoken, very firm in his beliefs. Nothing wrong with that at all. He slammed this conference as a cheerleading meeting. I know. Chip Roy is already signaling, as I mentioned, that could be looking for someone to replace McCarthy, try to oust McCarthy after all of this. He also said, and I don't remember who quoted him on this. I apologize, I got cut off. Representative Chip Roy, again, Republican from Texas, saying, no one sent us here to borrow an additional $4 trillion to get absolutely nothing in return. There's a reason our Democrat colleagues support this. There's a reason that Mitt Romney supports this. There's a reason that Bill Kristol supports this. Oof. Some big rhino names he's throwing around there. Representative Nancy Mace from South Carolina, also a Republican, saying, after reading the bill twice, I'm voting no on the debt ceiling debacle because playing the D.C. game isn't worth selling out our kids and grandkids. Now, I'm going to present the other side to you as well. I don't want you to just think it's all no's. There's a few handful of no's, clearly, and the media loves, as would be the case for the headlines, to quote them the most frequently. But there's also a lot of no's on the Democrat side, or at least signaling no. It's a little too early to say on some of these people one way or the other, saying, well, I'm leaning no, but, or so it's going to be interesting today. If they do vote, I don't know if we'll get final passage today. That's how the media is presenting it, but boy, it seems like we still got an uphill battle one way or the other. We will talk more about this. As I keep mentioning, Robbie Nichols will be our guest, so I hope that you'll stay tuned for that. Let's take another short break. Plenty left to discuss on the debt limit. I do have some New York State issues. It all depends on how much we're able to get to this morning, but time will tell, so you have to stay right there. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Starting you right off on the screen there. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. Robbie Nichols is our guest. Thanks so much for being on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's talk about the big day coming up on Friday, the first game of the season. Are you ready?
You're never ready, but we're so excited. It's great to have baseball back again. The weather's changing, beautiful weather, beautiful. And we're excited. The Elmira Pioneers have done so well these past few years.
Yeah.
And great fans, great sponsors, and fireworks night, and a hot dog and a cold drink. What's better in America?
No. And it sounds like Friday will be a beautiful baseball day. Warm, but perfect for a nice drink, like you said, and a hot dog. And you mentioned last season went really well.
Great season. The fans all came out. It all starts with all the great sponsors, all the great fans, and It's fun to see the packed stadium and the old Dwyer Stadium historic field. It's got a lot of improvements this year too, so we're excited to show them off for opening night. And come on down. Don't forget Friday the 3rd fireworks show. Get your tickets early because it's going to be packed.
It's going to be packed, and you always have. You're known really for the fireworks displays, aren't you?
Yeah, we do a lot of great shows, fireworks shows this year. There'll be 4 or 5 in Elmira, and the fans love that. Always a lot of great promotions this year. We got even a seat cushion giveaway.
Oh, wow.
Hilliard does a baseball giveaway. There's a T-shirt night. So every single night there's a different promotion going on.
Now, before we talk about a little bit more about the team and things like that, how can people find out more if they want to get their tickets?
So just on our website, or they can call our office to get their tickets. And they're doing well. Tickets go fast, but yeah.
And in a minute, I want to talk about other ways you can get involved with the Elmira Pioneers. But let's talk about the roster for a second. How's it look this year? How's the team look?
Roster looks good. So Andrew Drum, our manager, he's in charge of putting the roster together. A lot of great D1 players, some local flavor on our team. So the manager's put the team together, and he's excited. He thinks he has a good team. They made the playoffs last year and lost out in the playoffs, but it was they had a good team and a good quality product on the field.
And I think it's interesting. People may not realize how these students come in and they play. How does that work? How are they housed?
So the players are all from a lot of schools, D1, D2 schools, but from California, Florida, and they come to the area, and we have host families. We have some host families that love taking the players in and treat them as their own, and they're here for 2 months. And my wife and I, we own some homes in town, and we put some of them in our houses.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, it's a fun summer for them, a fun 2 months to come, and they bring a lot of family with them. All their families coming in and out to watch them. So we're excited for the city of Elmira because it brings a lot of economic dollars to the area, especially our game nights. One of the gas stations in the area said they win an award every June and July for their record sales because of the ball team. It
must be neat for the team to play at such a historic field with such a history.
The history is unbelievable for me to sit here and talk about it, but so the stadium was built in 1932. The team's been here since 1888. Wow. Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig played a game at that field.
Isn't that amazing?
Don Zimmer got married at home plate. The Yankees sent a photographer down to take a picture of a picture on the wall when Don passed away. And Earl Weaver was a manager there. Cal Ripken Sr. was a manager there. Wade Boggs played there. And you could go on and on and talk for an hour just about the history, and a lot of it is now on the walls as you walk the concourse, and you can see the history for yourself.
Yeah,
it's neat.
And like I said, the kids see some of their heroes or people that at least read about, and knowing that they're playing on the same field.
And that's what we're telling the players now. Right in your stall, in that stall, Yakubanis sat, 4 or 5 years ago. Now he's playing for the New York Mets and winning games for the New York Mets. Sean Jelly, a 6'9" pitcher from Kentucky, played for us 4 years ago. Now he's a starter for the San Francisco Giants. So it's neat to see these players go on to Major League Baseball.
You're so passionate about it, you can tell. So where does that passion come from? Because you're also involved in Batavia, right?
Yeah, it's the passion, I think, is sports. I love doing sports. We have a great team. Obviously, my wife, Mark Witt, our part owner and GM, and Kane takes care of our field. And we have such a great team, but the passion comes from sports. Yeah. The biggest high we get is when we turn and we see a kid smiling. Yeah. If we see the biggest day we do is Challenger Division baseball. Mm-hmm. Our entire team goes out and plays with the kids on Challenger Division baseball. It's Father's Day, and our entire team goes out and plays with them. And that's where our passion. If we see smiling faces, happy people, that's what makes us happy. And it's not, everybody thinks it's dollars and cents. Yeah. It's not dollars and cents. It's about seeing those kids smile. And
you have so many opportunities for involvement. I didn't even realize. I was checking the website, but like you said, something as simple as national anthem singers you're looking for, and baseball buddies. If you could tell us about these type of things.
Yeah, so a lot of community involvements. If something's going on in the community, we want to be involved. Right. We want to be there. Obviously, our players, our staff just walked 3 parades the other another day. All three of them, they have to walk. Welcome to town. Now you're walking in 3 parades. So those are big. We look for national anthems, but Baseball Buddies is a great opening day.
Yeah.
Mark Witt, like I said, our GM does an awesome job. We're going to have probably 100 to 200 little leaguers running out onto the field with the players.
That's so great.
The fifth inning, all the kids in the park get to come and run through the bases.
Yeah.
And not too many people can say I ran the bases at historic Dunn Field. And yeah, when you have to see a game, if you haven't seen a game and seen the packed crowd, I'm going to go on record. It'll be another sellout. Dunfield's getting used, and it's getting used a lot. We just had the Dunfield Classic there, a big tournament in town, and we're very passionate about what we do over there.
Well, it's great, and also you're looking for something like pregame performances, color guards. So you got Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, dance, cheer. Everybody can get involved.
Every group can get involved, and I'm going to say half of them are already involved.
Oh, of course.
But everybody can get involved by calling our offices, and it's going to be a fun summer.
How much preparation does it take to get ready for this opening game? Are you working all year?
All year. Yeah. All year. We start working on, and obviously it starts with our sponsors, but we work on it nonstop with the promotions, different things going on. That's why I say every single night. If you go to our website, you'll see every single night is a promotion, something going on. Yeah.
Can you stay with us through the break?
I can.
All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. This is the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program. And joining me in the studio, Robbie Nichols. Thanks again for being on the program, Robbie.
Thank you.
All right, we're talking about Elmira Pioneers. But before that, I touched on it, and people are probably wondering what I was mentioning. So tell us how you're involved in Batavia.
So a couple years ago, I kept on seeing that Batavia Muck Dogs were losing their ownership, losing their franchise. And my wife and I, we drive through there a lot because we from Canada and going back and forth. And I just got involved with the president of our league, and we decided to buy the team in Batavia. They used to average 700 people as a pro team, and now they're averaging 2,100 fans, and we do a lot of crazy promotions up there. The same things we do in Elmira.
Sure.
And it's going over really well. The team does really well. The fans are great. The sponsors are great.
Yeah.
So it keeps you extra busy.
I was going to
say
we
have two teams, and
it's not like
we love both teams equal.
You can't stagger seasons. You have to do them both at the same time.
Both at the same time. So if people knew my schedule, last night I was at a season ticket holder pickup party in Batavia last night. Drove down here about 1 in the morning and got here, picked up some banners and stuff from multimedia, and I'm here at
and I bet you it's 7:20 in the morning. I'm sorry, we should have done a late show.
It's non-sleep for the next 2 months.
I believe it. So back to Elmira Pioneers. How do people get season tickets? How do they become sponsors? Because you mentioned how important sponsors are for you.
Yep. So our office is 734-2690 for season tickets, for home opener tickets, for sponsorships. And like I said, sponsorships, everyone knows the people that support our community. And Hilliard, Southern Tier Custom Fab, the new First Transit turned to Transdev. I can go on and on. There we have easy over 100 sponsors.
That's great.
And that's what I said. It all starts with the sponsors. After that, the season ticket holders. We've had season ticket holders. One gentleman has been there for about 70 years.
Wow.
It's
amazing.
It's crazy. So he threw out, and God bless Herb Tipton, and I hope his health continues. He's with us right now in this year, and he wants another season of baseball. And a lot of people, the history of the park, like we touched on before, people just love the park and their memories. I used to go there with my grandfather. And all these stories. I used to be a bat boy back in 1952.
Right.
And the history. And the League of the Own did the movie. That we had a team there. Elmira had a team in that league. It's just the history is just incredible. And
there's something like being in a ballpark that you can't really get out of your memory, especially growing up. You mentioned the smile on kids' faces. That's something that will be in their mind forever.
It's family, and that's what we need to get back. We need family coming to the games, and some people say, Chemung Cadell has a lot of nights, and they're a great sponsor. And at the bank, your family can pick up tickets there. It'll cost you zero to come to the ballpark. We want families to come out and enjoy the ballpark, and people don't understand how we do our marketing at Can USA. You know, we packed the stadiums, we packed the arena. We led the league in sellouts at the arena all the time. And it's all about family and all about sponsors. And
well, and we talk about it on the program so often, but community. And think about, we need more community involvement. You know, it seems like people are getting less and less. They're getting on their computers. That's what they're doing, right? So something like this, what a beautiful way to build the community and just build, like you said, family, friendships.
And if you come to a game, opening night, say there's 5,000 people there, there's people may not even go watch the game, but they're on the concourse talking to their neighbor who they never talked to, or seeing people from work in a different setting. You know, you go there and you can see what your coworker looks like in real life with their family.
Isn't that
fun? So
fun?
it's family, it's community, exactly.
So it's opening up this Friday, 6:35. Of course, fireworks. So the tough question right there: how many fireworks do you go through in a season?
God. Lots, a lot of money. I always tease when we watch the fireworks with, I have seven grandchildren and our 4 children, and we love our family, and we love, hopefully all our foster children are there that night. We look up and I always tell them, there's your inheritance.
A lot of fireworks. Anything people should know before we go? Get involved opportunities. There's opportunities for Bat Boys, Bat Girls, right? I mean,
yep,
just
all
go
that.
To the website.
Call 734-2690. We got a lot of opportunities to get involved in. And Frank, we didn't get to talk about the arena. Next time.
Next time, okay.
Next time in the arena.
Robbie, thanks so much for being on the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll talk again soon. All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'd like to thank, again, Robbie Nichols for being our guest on the program. Find out more about those amazing games with Elmira Pioneers. You can go to theelmirapioneers.com. There is something special about that field, isn't there? I mean, we could have probably spent the whole show talking about the history of the park. But we have a lot to talk about with the debt ceiling, something completely different, the debt ceiling here. I had mentioned earlier that we talk about essentially both sides of it. We've had Republicans like Chip Roy and others who have been outspoken against it. And then you have Democrats who are not necessarily happy either. Representative Debbie Dingell saying, I'm still undecided. I mean, I'm angry that we're being held hostage, and we're continuing to be held hostage because we do not have a choice. I think, to a Democrat, none of us believe that we can default the debt ceiling. Representative Jared Huffman said, as much as I believe from a budgetary perspective, Republicans really didn't accomplish much in this deal, so I'm trying to save a little face here. We did make other concessions to them that are really tough to swallow. I haven't yet decided how I'm going to vote, but I will tell you, I don't feel good about it. So, yeah, that's negotiations. That's what happens when, Republicans take the House. There's going to be things in there that you obviously don't like. There's some concern, and I thought this was funny. As soon as you read it, and I know I mentioned it on the program, when there was that pushing for I didn't realize it was this name, Mountain Valley Pipeline. I think I said at the time, well, that's for Joe Manchin's vote, right? And I guess there's some Democrats kind of angry about that. Specifically, was it Debbie Dingell? It does not say here, but the Manchin piece is especially hard to swallow. This is the equivalent of building dozens of coal-fired power plants at a time when we really should be confronting the climate crisis in a more serious way. So Manchin lucking out there a little bit, and we knew there'd be some pushback. AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, is a no on this bill. That's according to Punchbowl News, getting the scoop there. Says she doesn't know about other progressives. So just speaking for herself, she is a no. Now, the House is expected to bring the bill to a vote today. So tomorrow on the program, we'll talk even more about it. Now, the CBO did put the estimate that it'll cut the debt by $1.5 trillion. Now, again, I would love to have you weigh in on it. Do you think this is a bad deal? Do you think this is a good deal? Do you think it's a good negotiation, compromise? You can weigh in. I can put that number up again if you'd like. I will say, and this is completely unrelated to this bill specifically, the CBO never really intrigues me as it seems to everybody else, especially in the media. A lot of times you've got to, I question it is all. It's kind of like polling to me, where you can use it in your favor, you can use it against your opponent. Same scenario, in my opinion. That has nothing to do with this bill. just as a side tangent, if you will. But they said it'll reduce the U.S. government's debt by $1.5 trillion over the next decade. And I can't remember who was quoted as saying, but, that's typical government numbers, 1.5 trillion over decades. Again, I'm not criticizing the CBO, and I'm not making anybody's decision for them, clearly. In a letter to McCarthy, CBO Director Philip Schwangel said the agency projected the deal's caps on discretionary spending in 2024 and 2025 would reduce outlays by $1.3 trillion over the next 10 years. Mandatory spending would fall by $10 billion. Revenues are projected to fall by $2 billion. This is interesting. So revenue fall by $2 billion due to the cuts for enforcement for the IRS. We had to cut the IRS. I mean, you were seeing how many people they're hiring on, and then there was the weirdness of where they were looking for armed agents as well. But we don't need an army of IRS agents. So I'm not sure if I agree with that $2 billion just because they didn't hire as many as they wanted. It sounds like they're still trying to hire plenty. Now, whether or not they're able to hire plenty, that's a whole other question. I'm not going to go through all the nitty-gritty of it and the wonkiness of all those numbers from the CBO. But Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader, has said he will deliver the House votes to prevent this default. This is going to be kind of an early test for Hakeem, the House Minority Leader. Where did he go? Was it Binghamton? I know he's got ties to around this area. Jeffries said House Democrats will make sure that the country does not default. Chuck Schumer, on the Senate side of things, saying, I support the bipartisan agreement that President Biden has produced with Speaker McCarthy. This is our Senator, Chuck Schumer. Avoiding default is absolutely imperative. Senators must be prepared to act with urgency to pass the bill before the June 5th deadline because it protects key investments that are essential for growing our economy. I'll make sure the Senate moves quickly. He called the legislation a responsible, prudent, and very necessary way forward. Of course, Mitch McConnell kind of echoing those points a little bit. The American people get a lot more progress toward fiscal sanity with this. House Republicans' unity forced President Biden to do his job. And that's one thing that Kevin McCarthy is saying about this. We've got to stay unified. We've got to stay strong on this to get this victory. I do think there's going to be some of the House Freedom Caucus, some of the Chip Roy, some of the people that didn't want Speaker McCarthy in the first place that may vote against this. And I predicted it early on. I'm not sure if it'll come to fruition, but I did predict that instantly this would lead to, no matter what happens, to the calling for an ouster of Speaker McCarthy, and maybe like a no confidence vote. I'm not sure if that's exactly what they titled it, but trying to get rid of him as Speaker. We know there was a pretty substantial group that did not want him as the Speaker, so this may be their opportunity to have another go at it and have many long nights in Washington. We've got to take another short break. When we come back, some New York issues, but I'll check to see if we have any comments from you, the viewer, on, well, Robbie or our topics so far, the debt ceiling. Plenty other topics to discuss. I know that gets a little bit wonky. I hope you don't find it boring. I know we don't make it boring here on the program, but it's important. And I think we're giving you a perspective and more insight into it than maybe you can get elsewhere. So I would love to hear what your opinion on all of that is. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'm Frank Ake. I'm asking you, stay with us. We are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. So let's take a look at what some of you, the viewers, have to say about the debt ceiling. Quote, how do I feel about the debt ceiling? Wake me up when the people are looking for a cure, not treatment. Here's one. Two things. Thank you, Robbie, for all you and your family do for the community. That's in reference to our interview with Robbie Nichols from the Pioneers. And then now to the debt ceiling. Whatever deal they come to, it doesn't matter in the end. Everything costs more. Nothing ever goes down. As I've previously said, we, the people, just want less government involvement. Yes, the best part is people in the system have to participate in the workforce. Yes, that was a major win. Let me see how we're doing here. Trying to get having a little bit of audio difficulties, and I apologize. I don't know how much of that you heard, so I did just read. That's interesting. Lost the sound right there for just a couple of seconds. So if I'll read the last one. Thank you. People are already writing in that we're back. I don't think it was off for long, but I appreciate it. So I did mention, I don't know if you saw this last text, whatever, or heard me read it. Whatever deal they come to, it doesn't matter in the end. Everything costs more, nothing ever goes down. As I previously said, we the people just want less government involvement. The best part is people in the system have to participate in the workforce. And then, and I mentioned the person, I don't know if you heard it, but they said grandkids, kids, grandkids, great-grandkids already in debt because of government spending. Let's change it up a little bit. And there's a piece, I won't have time to get to all of it, but I highly recommend it because I think that the New York Times seems to have a problem with Governor Hochul, which is kind of surprising. Now, when I say problem, it's the New York Times going against the Democrats, so it's not going to be horrible, but they're the ones that brought up her Colorado aide that was giving her talking points. They brought up some nasty stories, and I believe it was the Times that originally started talking about this, and now the Post is. And there's a lot of suspicious things around Governor Hochul's decisions that keep helping her husband and his interests. Now, we just don't have time to go through every specific instance of this, but you have multi-billion-dollar gaming, hotels, and concessions that his company, which is Delaware North, has benefited from her decisions. Again, reports from the New York Times, so it did start with the Times. You have some other entities, the Bills involved, Seneca Nation involved with gambling entities. So what they're basically boiling this down to is pay-to-play allegations have surrounded Governor Hochul's handling of state deals for COVID test kits. Remember that? Medicare transportation contracts as well. $600 million in public money for that new Buffalo Bills stadium and the efforts to redevelop Penn Station. The only way the governor could start to clear the air on her husband and on that lack of transparency is to release all communications involving herself, her staff, Delaware North, which is the company that her husband's involved in, and probably the Bills and the Senecas too. Taxpayers have every right to demand proof the government isn't helping out her husband. Kathy Hochul vowed to be more transparent than her disgraced predecessor, but, quote, more straightforward than Andrew Cuomo, unquote, is a laughably low bar, writes the New York Post. She can and should do a lot better. So some red flags raised there. We're going to go through some New York issues quick. Do I have time? I think I do. We keep talking about these green projects in New York and the rules and regulations and no gas stoves. There's actually, I could tie this in with a really good piece from the New York Post or from Fox News as well. But the grid is just not ready for what they're envisioning and forcing upon us. Let me put that up there on the screen. We need a lot of tools. A lot of tools in the toolbox, tongue twisted, including some very aggressive energy efficiency. Customers have to play a big part in reducing usage or shifting usage, said Bart Franey, the Vice President of Clean Energy Development at National Grid. Now, this is why I mentioned the article. Look at these numbers. Under the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, the state must reduce emissions to 40% below 1990 levels by the year 2030. Now, 2030 sounds almost futuristic, right? It's less than 7 years. It's crunch time. It's 78 months until 2030, said Bart Franey. That's like tomorrow for us. So there's an opinion piece from Liz Peek. We mentioned her last week from Fox News. And she said, whether it's John Kerry or these climate rules, are they coming for your burgers and 4th of July? And the reason this just piqued my interest, and I'm going to keep you waiting on that, but it piqued my interest to start thinking about and this is what Liz Peek mentions, what's July 4th going to look like, or Memorial Day weekend when you have your barbecues? What's it going to look like in 5 to 10 years? We'll talk just a second about it when we come back. So stay with us. This is, Frankly Speaking, on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back. Back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. Let's read one last. This is a voicemail, so it translates it for me so I can read it. I don't have to hear it live on the air. Frank, too little, too late, meaning budget and what we're spending in this country. Smaller government, yes. They reference PBS as something that could be eliminated. I know that's come up in the past numerous times. Taxpayer funding for that entity. And as they raise a point, and I think it's a good point, if you can't make money doing your show, I say get out, meaning, the various public broadcasting, right? It doesn't have the most successful business model when you have the government involved giving taxpayer dollars to programs that maybe no one watches or listens to, but they believe fills a kind of an artistic segment or a unique segment. So that's a very good point from that viewer. Thank you very much. So I mentioned this article by Liz Peek, and you think about this. In New York State, they want to get rid of gas stoves. They want to get rid of, obviously, coal. So what are our summer picnics going to look like? And that's what Liz Peek asks us. Saying here, when you kick back from the work week and you tip a hat to the founders of our great nation on July 4th, I wonder, will we still celebrate our nation's holidays with these time-honored traditions 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And she picks it apart, and I thought this was a very, very interesting and intriguing point. Start with the obvious. John Kerry and climate zealots everywhere are adamantly opposed to the kind of food we eat and how it is produced. We've heard that for a long time. He and his Democrat colleagues are equally incensed that we might cook over gas grills. I can't even imagine their horror at charcoal fires. Surely, carbon-emitting charcoal is on the kill list. Next is the cost of feeding the neighborhood. It used to be the traditional hamburger barbecue was inexpensive, but in the past year, the price is skyrocketing. I mentioned it right before, maybe it was on Memorial Day. Much more important than all of the above, the actual purpose of Flag Day, for instance, and the 4th of July is to honor the birth of our nation, with the left actively rewriting U.S. history and going after the country's accomplishments and exceptionalism. These holidays could well be rebranded in the future as National Apology Day. And as Joe Biden might say, this is no joke. It's a much longer piece, but I thought raised something to think about. You agree with Liz Peek? You disagree? Definitely will look different. Our barbecues, our summers will look a lot different, and our winters will definitely look different without natural gas. We've got to take one last short break. Stay with us. We'll be back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I think you had a little sneak peek from an old show, huh? Sorry about that. Trying to get things figured out. Had a little technical difficulties right here at the end. But I think we're back on with our normal programming as we wrap up. Thank you so much for everyone who joined us. A couple quick things. The New York cannabis regulators have adopted rules targeting illegal shops. They've opened up more avenues for people to get the legal licenses. But in an effort to curb illegal sales of marijuana, the Cannabis Control Board also adopted new regulations yesterday that are designed to strengthen enforcement efforts against thousands of unlicensed shops, a setup that has further damaged the rollout and taken away customers from the state's 12 licensed marijuana retailers. Oh yeah, it was a black market. It's going to take away from a more expensive New York State approved product, of course, and they only have 12 licensed retailers. When how many did they say in New York City? The illegal shops are something like 5,000. The new rules, which are approved by the legislature and signed into law by Governor Hochul in early May, will empower the Office of Cannabis Management to work with police agencies to seize illegal product, potentially issue fines, and also shutter shops that are not in compliance. The law adds language criminalizing the unlawful possession and sale of cannabis, and enables regulators to seek fines of up to $20,000 per day for erroneous violations. Still doesn't sound like there's going to be a lot of teeth there. Sounds nice. Sounds good on paper. I would not put too much faith in it. Last thing, Ron DeSantis held his first Iowa campaign kickoff, I guess you could call it. First official presidential campaign visit. How's that? To Iowa, where he said he vows to put Biden back to his basement. He also did not speak very highly of the debt deal. And the media started to go after him. There's a very interesting piece at Fox News, how, Trump, of course, was the worst in the media, and there's the worst. And now the new line is, but DeSantis is even more dangerous. It's always, who was it is quoted as saying, it doesn't matter whether you're a rock-ribbed conservative like Ronald Reagan or an outsider like Donald Trump, a known commodity like George H.W. Bush or George W. Bush, or a moderate like Romney or John McCain. No matter who you are, the media will assume the worst. Going into the name-calling. If everyone is a second coming of Hitler or fill-in-the-blank dictator from yesteryear, then no one is. That's Houck. I don't know. I can't remember Houck's first name. I apologize over that. For Curtis Houck. Yeah, you're going to see those, the outlandish language like you saw often with Trump, but you have seen with pretty much any Republican candidate for president. That is it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you to everybody who joined us. Thank you to Robbie Nichols from the Mile Pioneers. Don't forget the first game, opening day, this Friday at 6:35 p.m. with, of course, fireworks at the end. We will be back tomorrow morning bright and early with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. Have a great day, everyone. Hi, I'm Frank Acom. Thanks for checking out our YouTube page. We'll be uploading each edition of Frankly Speaking 1 week after the original air date. So, let me remind you to watch the live version of Frankly Speaking weekday mornings starting at 7, only on WYDC TV Big Fox.